And Yvette Clark and Nydia Velasquez are supporting question one. The New York Times is supporting question one. So that's campaign finance reform. Question two, we talked about civic participation.
Now, on question two, the reason I said it might be complicated and maybe create some bureaucracy is because opponents of question two say that there are already jobs in the government that are supposed to be handling what you're saying.
Yeah, here's the problem.
So would there be redundancies?
No, because I get why people of good faith are saying, hey, we have concerns. But I go with the reality. Right now, it's really hard, for example, to get translation services for an election. It's really hard to figure out where your poll site is. And there's been a lot of confusion.
Yep.
That's because our Board of Elections is a really, in my humble opinion,
a sham, corrupt. This is not the
I don't even think it's corrupt. I think it's a 20th century vehicle for a 21st arcane. It doesn't communicate with people the way we communicate today and doesn't provide accurate information. So that basically causes a lot of people to check out. We need something more vibrant to help get the word out. And also that direct budgeting point, the community participatory budgeting, people have never experienced that. I guarantee you when people get to see, I get to vote on where my own money goes, you're going to see a whole nother level of participation. The last one, question three, term limits for community boards. Community boards are most youth leadership.
I support that also because when I was doing some research on it, I saw people who oppose it were like, well, that puts seasoned community board members in danger, people who actually have been involved and know what the community wants. But I'm like, why don't you give other people who want to be involved a chance? And maybe these people can be around to help the other ones make decisions. But I'm for it 100%.
Laura Stiles, ladies and gentlemen.
And it feels like those seasoned board members would be, if they were smart, once these term limits come in, they would be standing next to the next board members that could keep things going forward.
In theory, yes.
Yeah, it's all about, look, it is about striking a balance. If a long time the political system was about seniority alone, right? So it's like, wait your turn, wait your turn. What we've seen more and more is that folks aren't accepting that anymore. They don't think if you're in the political system, you're in the community board, you're in the Congress, it's like a private club. It's supposed to be an open situation where anyone has a chance to participate. And if someone's bringing new ideas and new perspective, they should get a chance too. And part of why people checked out of the political process is they didn't see response to their concerns. They didn't see representatives who understood them and could relate to them.
That and we was high off Obama. Honestly, in 2010 and 2014, we botched it.
Well, everyone felt like they already did it. Like, we did it. We made it.
That's right.
And
we've learned a valuable lesson.
Yeah. It was just, and it was also just ignorance on the local level and how the process works. I think people are more engaged than ever. Our access to information is higher than ever. Transparency as far as, it's hard to discern what's real and what's fake.
Yeah.
But, there is a way if you want to participate and go learn what's happening out here. It's much easier now in the digital age.
It is, and the energy and focus levels. Look, I think history is going to show. Obviously, I'm deeply troubled by a lot of what Donald Trump has done. But Donald Trump also inadvertently put a sharp point on the reality of our democracy.
Woke us up.
Right? Yes, a lot of people woke up as a result. And, for example, Georgia, 3 times as many people voted in early voting as 4 years previous. Now, some of that is extraordinary energy around Stacey Abrams. Imagine the power of the first African-American woman being elected governor of American state.
In a red state.
In a red state. But I think there's something much deeper going on than just one election. I think people are recognizing that when they turned away, their interests got absolutely run over. And you have to have a sense of ownership. You have to feel like it's your society and you can make an impact every year, not just every 4 years, but every year locally in your neighborhood. Donald Trump, in one form or another, caused people to suddenly realize that if they don't participate, really bad things, things that really violate our values start to happen. And now the question is what we do with that. Now that that awareness is out there, you're right, much more information's out there. Are we going to turn that into a truly democratic culture where people participate constantly? If we do that, it's a whole different, better country. There's never been a lack of people who wanted to go in a progressive direction. There's always been a progressive majority for a long time. I mean that literally. If you look at election after election in this country, you see if the whole populace came out to vote, we would be moving in a much more inclusive, progressive direction. It's always been about those who stay home and feel it's not for them, feel like they can't make a difference. A lot of those folks are saying, wait a minute, I've got to get in this now.
Also, I want to mention that we are live on YouTube. If people want to watch on the Hot 97 YouTube channel, you can watch this as well. Mayor, one concern we've had the last few days is that if the election doesn't go the way it's expected to go for the Republicans, and they are disappointed, and it goes the way that a lot of progressive people hope it does, that they will do anything and everything to freak out, discount the vote, and somehow cheat us in certain places. Does that concern you?
Yeah, I think Georgia, I am fully expecting, because the guy who's running against Stacey Abrams is in charge of the election process.
He's the Secretary of State.
And he's already tried to undermine early voting. He's already tried to disqualify people from voting who were eligible. I think you're going to see what you saw in Florida in 2000 with Gore and Bush. So I believe Stacey Abrams has a majority in Georgia. And mysteriously, do not be surprised if at the end of the first vote count, the other guy is winning. But I think we have to, if we see something like that, if we see something that looks like an attempt to steal an election, there has to be a much stronger response than what we saw in the year 2000. Because I don't have any doubt in my mind that Al Gore won Florida in 2000. It just wasn't contested after the fact the way it should have been. So, yeah, Rosenberg, to your question, I think you will see that. I think we have to take it head on. I think people will feel cheated and angry this time and will stand up against it. But there's no question in my mind if you actually see what's happening on the ground and if people feel enfranchised, you'll see a lot of powerful results tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, more with Mayor de Blasio coming up next on Hot 97.
Flashing lights made hot by Santander Bank, where respect adds up.
WQHT and WQHT HD1 New York. Ebro in the morning with Laura.
Hey, what's up? This is Peter Rosenberg, and this is the most important election I can remember because it is a statement on whether you are good with how things are in the White House in this country or whether you think we need to go in a positive, more inclusive, progressive direction. Many senators are up for re-election, and all of the House are up for re-election. And basically, if Donald Trump has control of the House and Senate, he can get done whatever he wants to. If the Democrats can take control of the House and the Senate, it completely ties Donald Trump's hand. Some of these elections will be determined by a matter of hundreds of votes. This isn't some election where you go, oh, my vote doesn't even matter. Every vote matters in these elections. These are local. These are about the people around you that govern you. We have so many people who feel under attack, and those people's problems will only grow and get worse if you do not make a change and get out there and vote in this election. The last day to register to vote in New York is this Friday, so make sure you go out and do that. And if you're watching this from another state, make sure you look it up and find out when you have to register by so you can vote. Our world is counting on you.
Hey guys, it's Laura Stiles from Ebro.
That what you
Yeah, you do one, Rosenberg.
That's
No, do one.
midterm elections? I don't know. I don't have. Why would that be the voice?
This is
Laura,
not
you
a
do one.
positive voice.
Yeah.
Midterm elections 2018.
Why are you all making your voices worse? I don't understand it.
Yeah. How about just midterm elections coverage?
There you go.
On Hot 97.
That makes me
man.
want to listen.
It's
right?
got to sound scary, man. You got to scare
that's
people
so
like election day. It is life or death. Get out and vote.
This is not a
that's how it
shark
feels.
movie. This is an election.
Not
What is
Sharknado.
wrong with you?
Mayor de Blasio, what's going on, man? We feel like you were scared to come talk Talk to us, bro.
Oh, stop.
After all these years, man, the nitrous stuff, the lead paint stuff, the rat infestation, we're like, where's the Blasio? What's going on?
Here and will be here. Come on.
No, honestly, I've said on the radio multiple times, de Blasio is scared to come see us now. Things got crazy around the lead paint
I will
thing.
meet you in the Thunderdome. There we go. Excellent sound effect.
But you can admit that the nitro lead paint thing was terrible. It played out terribly.
Of course. And look, we have to take full responsibility for fixing it. But I want to be clear, the problem unfortunately began years before, and we didn't understand the extent of it. I want to be real about that. But there is some
I appreciate you saying that.
No, it's really important to be straight up about it. But there's a very powerful thing that got lost because unfortunately, bad news travels very fast. Good news doesn't. Since 2005, the amount of lead exposure for our children in New York City has gone down 90%, which is an extraordinarily good thing for the city. I have said, we have a Vision Zero strategy in terms of traffic and traffic crashes and fatalities. I've said we want to do the same thing on lead. We want to eradicate lead, not have a single New York City child exposed anymore. And because we've reduced it by 90% in just 15 years, we can get this done. So we have a new lead czar, Catherine Garcia, leading the way. We put very, very aggressive measures in to once and for all identify where it is and deal with it.
Why is it so hard to identify? Help us regular folks understand why it's just not like walk into an apartment, boom, done, like what's the...
Because we're talking about things that were done over decades and decades and layers of paint and all sorts of things that if it just presented itself as like, here's something to just, take out of the apartment and close the door behind you, that would be great. Unfortunately, we're talking about stuff that's in the walls, covered up, sometimes exposed, sometimes not.
And is this one of those situations where you as a mayor, an executive in the city, are hired by us to then hire other people to handle jobs?
Correct.
And so you're entrusting their know-how, you're vetting these people to whatever degree you and your staff can, and if they go out and botch it, this falls on you. Because you're not actually going door to door checking the lead, because that's not your area of expertise. But
the bottom line is I have to hire the best people I can find to do the work and, of course, hold their feet to the fire and ask tough questions. But, I have 380,000 employees. I have one of the biggest governments anywhere, obviously. And my job is to put together a group of leaders who are going to make sure it runs well. We know that's tough because it's a big city. It's a complicated city. But I take personal responsibility in every instance. Here, the challenge is that lead paint inspections have been required in this city and required in public housing and all housing for well over a decade. It was actually a piece of legislation that I supported when I was in the city council. But in the previous administration, those inspections stopped in NYCHA for reasons we do not understand. And when our team came in and took over, they did not understand that had been missed. And that is on us because we missed it, but also on our predecessors because they stopped the inspections. But we can't, we don't have a time machine. So the question is what we do now. And now what we've done has been very, very aggressive about saying we're sending out inspectors every single year. We're doing the remediation every single year. If we find any young person that's been exposed, we're getting them the health services they need. One, if there's a silver lining, one thing is if a young person's exposed to lead, you catch it quickly, that exposure level can go down quickly too and can help to protect that child. So we're pulling all these strands together. As I said, it's a Vision Zero. We want no child to be exposed to lead. The other thing to know, Ebro, is, look, NYCHA has been an issue, but actually most lead paint exposure happens in private housing.
Interesting.
So we have a lot more to do there to address that problem. Lead paint exposure has gone down a lot more in NYCHA than it has in private housing. Anyone who thinks that there may be a lead paint situation needs to call 311 because we want to get on it.
Why would you expect that in your home? Like what?
Yeah,
because of how old it is, maybe, or like how would you?
Definitely a lot of older buildings. And look, the public sector is not perfect, but the public sector puts a lot of energy into health and safety and following regulations. Some private landlords don't. And that's, in fact, when Local Law 1 was passed to try and address lead paint, it was first and foremost about those private landlords because that's where the problem was. So anyone who thinks there's lead paint in their home should call 311. Department of Health will come over and inspect and make sure. Lead paint really is an issue for kids under 6. There's much less danger after the age of 6 or 6 or up. If you have young kids, 0 to 5, if you're in an older apartment building, if you think there may be lead, pick up the phone, call 311, and we'll make sure there's follow-up.
And Laura, you pointed out one day, and I know everybody's like, why are you guys talking about lead paint? But honestly, it's because it tastes sweet. I didn't know that. Was that you that told me that, Laura Stiles?
No,
that it
we were
tastes
discussing
sweet?
it because we read an article that 10,000 more apartments have come up with lead poisoning, and then you said that you had read it somewhere that because it's kids,
I was
kids
like,
will
why are
lick
people
anything
eating
in it.
paint? Like, what's going on out here?
but
Come to find out,
babies are-
lead paint tastes sweet.
So babies are touching things and licking things, and apparently that's something that attracts them, and that's how they end up getting poisoned also.
But that's if it's chipping. I mean, this is really what it comes down to. Most of the time, a place that has had lead paint, it's covered up, it's painted over. There's no way it chips or comes out. It's where, for whatever reason, it's been disturbed and there's like a little bit of flaking or chipping. That's the danger, which is why we have to stay on it all the time. And this is a every single year kind of thing. And why we decided to have a lead czar to make sure that every piece of the city government is active on this. But the biggest challenge is to make sure in the private landlords that wherever it is, we get after it and we address it quickly. And look, I think if everyone participates and lets the city know what's going on, we can actually make additional strides. We've reduced lead paint exposure 90%. I want to reduce it to 100%.
And the rat situation. The city has a rat. Everybody knows about the rats in the city. But in NYCHA, there in certain buildings, there is a complete infestation going on.
There are buildings, this shocked me. I had no idea when I became mayor. There are buildings that have basements with dirt floors in some of the really older NYCHA developments. Because remember, some of those go back to 1930s, 40s, 50s. And that's like rat heaven when they have a dirt floor they can come up through and there's a food source somewhere. We are paving over those floors. We're putting in much better facilities to deal with trash because if the rats don't have anything to eat, they don't stay around, and a whole lot more extermination. This is a real big problem, but it's one that we have found things that actually work. And we actually now have a plan. Dry ice is another thing, which we now are allowed to use, which has a tremendously positive impact on dealing with rats.
Rats don't like dry ice.
Rats really don't like dry ice.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's one of the most foundational ways we can get at them. So we found new ways that work. We have a lot of work to do because remember, 400,000 people live in public housing. It's like its own city. Some buildings are in pretty good shape, other buildings not at all, particularly the ones that are oldest. But we're going to be very systematic about going at the rat problem.
Just recently, there was the Proud Boys incident here in the city. And because of the current leadership of the nation, white supremacy and open racism has just become more commonplace, so it feels. I mean, around New York City and Long Island, we've always heard, and there's always been hate crimes and different things pop up, but it just feels like right now it's at an all-time high.
People are emboldened.
Yes. Maybe it's just how we feel because social media and the media is covering it so much.
Now they're getting license from the president
So
to
you,
talk that
as
way.
somebody who is looking at this stuff every day, you feel like there's a lot more.
Look, for a long time, the most meaningful voices in our society sent a message of some kind of respect, some kind of understanding you cannot openly discriminate and cannot treat people that way publicly. Now, a lot of people behind the scenes continue to have negative and divisive views, but they didn't feel they could come out in public with them, right? Donald Trump opened the floodgates. He gave permission to folks to use hate speech. And he gave permission to the white supremacists. Now, I can't put it all on him, right? It's been there all along, and there's plenty of other elements of our society that, quietly or openly encourage division. I've often said, there's some things we see that are divisive and have been divisive for years that we've just grown accustomed to. But he brought something out in a sharper way, and we've got to stop it. We have to get to the point again where people recognize not only is it not acceptable to say it, it's not acceptable to think it.
But an organization or a group, I don't know if I would call them an organization, but an organization like the Proud Boys or any white supremacist group, for that matter, going around inciting violence in this city where we live or any city, right? And then it's like police are standing right there watching it happen. And you see the videos, and for me, it's kind of like, how is that even possible that these people are allowed to have hate speech and walk the streets of our city and there's no ramifications. But that's me. And, you know, people say freedom of speech, but certain things incite violence, I believe. Like a swastika is violence. You're inciting violence to me. A Confederate flag is you're inciting violence to me. You're running around talking about hate towards Jews and blacks and this one and immigrants. That's inciting violence. You are doing that to antagonize individuals. That's hate speech. Why isn't it that cut and dry?
Okay, I want to. You're asking one of the most basic, powerful questions about American democracy. So here, look, we had these horrible hate events, and the horrible killings in Pittsburgh. We had a synagogue desecrated in Brooklyn. We had the African burial ground in Manhattan, where horrible racist graffiti was written. We have to go after hate crime. Those are hate crimes with really sharp, clear consequences. And I think if you look at the history, NYPD puts a lot of energy into addressing hate crime and has had a very powerful impact in terms of bringing to justice those who do them. And I think that's one of the ways you stop hate crime is by showing people consequences. That is different from the question of freedom of speech. If the Proud Boys, I detest what they believe in, but if they gather peacefully, constitutional right is to be able to say what you believe no matter how much we detest it, no matter how much we think it's wrong. If they incite violence directly, then our police will intervene, must intervene. That's true left, right, center. Anyone who directly incites violence, that's a different matter. But the hate speech itself, let's be clear, it's constitutionally protected. And in the end, I mean, that's painful to me sometimes. There's that famous question, the American Civil Liberties Union stood up for the right of Nazis to march in Skokie, Illinois, is like a famous case, because they made the point that you can't judge by philosophy. We might say, oh, don't let the Nazis march, but someday someone would say, don't let us march, right? So one American value is all different viewpoints can be aired.
That's the gift and the curse.
Right,
Yeah.
the gift and the curse. But the second it turns towards violence, that's a whole different reality that must be addressed.
How's your relationship with the NYPD these days?
I think we've come a long way. We've retrained the entire police force, de-escalation techniques, implicit bias training now being provided to help weed out the biases that we all have as human beings. I mean, I think if you look at NYPD under neighborhood policing, here's stunning fact, 2017, 100,000 fewer arrests by the NYPD compared to 4 years earlier. 100,000 fewer arrests, and crime went down anyway.
Wow.
That's a great stat.
Something different is going on.
Better relationship. And I know the big thorn in your side is finding affordable housing.
Yeah.
We have a housing crisis.
Yep.
And I mean, I hate calling it a crisis because there's plenty of empty spaces. It's just that people can't afford them.
Yeah.
How are you addressing this and the homelessness issue? I'm seeing these shelters again. Communities are pushing back against shelters. It's you and against different communities. People don't want the shelter here. They're supposed to go over there, et cetera, et cetera. What are you doing to address this?
Look, I came out in the election year last year, my election year, and I said we're going to do 90 new shelters, and we're going to do them in every kind of community to represent where homeless folks come from, because homeless folks come from pretty much every neighborhood in New York City. That's how, and we want people getting back to their home community. If, God forbid, they're homeless, we want them back to their home community to help them get out of homelessness. We've now gotten over 90,000 people who were homeless the last 5 years to housing. 90,000 people. We've gotten 2,000 people who are living permanently on the streets to come off the streets and stay off the streets. So some of these strategies are working. On affordable housing, the big plan that we have made a ton of progress on is 300,000 affordable apartments either built or subsidized, meaning you live in your apartment, you get a subsidy to stay there long term. That plan is ahead of schedule. I'm very proud of it. But the thing we need the most is next year in Albany, we need to strengthen our rent laws. We need to protect the affordable housing we have, because if our rent laws aren't strengthened, a lot of people right now who are rent stabilized, rent controlled, are going to lose those apartments.
And what will that process be like?
It's a vote in Albany.
Okay.
The legislature comes back January 1st. I believe there will be a Democratic state Senate, which is going to be a game changer. And we can finally put laws in place that will protect the affordable housing we have. We got over 2 million New Yorkers who are under rent regulation. It's one of the things that makes New York City different. Is that 2 million plus New Yorkers who are in rent regulation, the 400,000 people in public housing. Most cities don't have anything like that to protect working people and everyday people. But those laws need to be strengthened, because we see what's happened to the cost of housing. I say we go to Albany, we put in place laws that say if you're in affordable housing right now, we're going to help you stay there long term so we can be a city for everyone.
Mayor de Blasio, ladies and gentlemen, everybody wake up and get to the polls. They're open until 9 a.m. De Blasio,
9 p.m.
9 p.m., I'm sorry.
And flip your ballot. Flip your ballot. You got candidates on one side, the ballot questions the other side. Please vote yes, yes, yes on question 1, 2, 3. Flip your ballot. Vote today.
There it is. Mayor, anything we didn't touch before, because the mayor may not come back.
I'm coming back.
He's big time now. He's in his second term.
What's going on over there?
Well, Mayor, I fight for you, but
I'm coming back.
I felt neglected also.
I don't want you to feel that.
Yo, you're not telling the truth right now, Laura.
We need
Y'all
counseling.
had some Hispanic heritage situation at the.
We need counseling.
You listen.
I felt left out.
No, we can't have that.
Blas, you guys had an Hispanic heritage event.
Okay.
Laura Stiles, who's been to, what's the name of the house over there?
Gracie Mansion.
There you go. Been to the crib a few times.
Yes, she has.
Very supportive.
Very.
She was
about
not
mental health.
invited.
Okay.
I don't know who your new staff is, but they don't know.
We got to fix this. Can we get a professional counselor and just on air do counseling to work this?
Hey,
Can we talk this out?
Rosenberg, you're
Can we
good
talk
on
this
this.
through?
You know more about
I'll try to find someone.
relationship
Okay.
counseling.
Yes.
There you go.
Because look, Mayor, man.
Come on, we've been together a long time, guys.
Don't start acting funny now.
We've been together a long time. If you don't love me by now,
Then you'll never, ever.
come on.
Ladies and gentlemen,
you, man.
Mayor de
Come on.
Blasio, thank you for
everyone.
your time today.
Vote.
Thank you.
Vote.
And is everybody straight? It's straight Democratic today. I listen. I'm a registered independent. I'll
Yes.
be honest, and I know that today is that day though, where
Yeah.
we have to ensure that checks and balances is working. And it feels like there is no Republican that wants to distance themselves far enough from Trump and his rhetoric and his behavior.
It's shocking. I expected some voices of conscience to emerge from the Republican Party. We
It's
haven't
sad.
seen it.
It's sad.
and it's going. There will be a reckoning one day in a country that's ultimately not going to buy what Trump is selling. But I say vote for Democrats, but vote on the working families line. That's what I'm going to do.
Interesting.
The Democrats, all the major Democratic candidates, major offices, are also listed on the working families line because I think that sends a message about wanting more progressive change.
Interesting. So voting, because when I just voted Democrat this morning, I saw the working families line, but I didn't know that
It
one
counts
meant
just the same. Counts just the same for the vote total of your candidate. But I believe Working Families Party has been a very positive progressive force in this state. So I'm going to be voting for all those candidates who are Democrats, but on the Working Families line. And I'm going to be voting yes, yes, yes on the ballot, questions 1, 2, 3. Most important thing is everyone get out and vote. But you're right. If we don't see people standing up to Donald Trump, we should not reward them with our vote.
Mayor de Blasio,
Thanks,
ladies
Mayor.
and
Thank
gentlemen.
you. Thank you. I'll be
Ebro
back.
in the morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
On Hot 97.
Hello, my name is Carmen Perez,
And I'm Jay Jordan.
and I feel that this election is critical because we need everyone's voice to get out these politicians who don't care about our communities.
In Florida right now, the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition is in a fight to re-enfranchise 1.68 million Floridians with felony convictions to vote. And so for me, as a person with a conviction from California, this election is important for everybody in Florida.
We need you to go vote for people who are gonna come out and support our issues, particularly for women. We got Brett Kavanaugh that is being supported to go into the highest part of, highest court, right? And he obviously does not care about women.
Vote women, vote a woman in office. If you never voted a woman in office, vote women in office. It's important for men to stand in solidarity as good allies, especially in New York. If there's a woman on the ballot, check her resume. If she's dope, vote her in office. October 12th, Friday, is the last day to register to vote. So get out, take your grandmother, your grandfather, your auntie, your uncle, your dog, your nephew, everybody, make sure they register to vote before this Friday because it's the last day to register to vote.
Hey, what's
what's going on? It's Megan Wright. So I used to be one of those people who thought, well, my vote's not going to count anyway, so what difference does it make? Why do I have to vote? That is not the case, especially for local and state elections. Sometimes it can come down really close and your vote really does matter. Have you ever seen like those polls where it's like 48% to 49%? So definitely go out and vote. Exercise your right if you want to make a difference November 6th. We live here and we take public transportation, and for a lot of people, it's their only means of transportation. So it needs to be a top priority to make sure that the subways are working well, that they're clean, and it needs to happen. Go out and vote November 6th. Make it happen.
Let me tell you the best feeling in the world. Voting. I'm telling you, you want to be a citizen of this country, you want to feel that you have a part of the future of this country, please go vote. I don't care how you vote, but vote. It is your right and your obligation.
Every day people are making decisions in Albany that affect everyone's life in the state of New York, and it's time that we absolutely stand up and take responsibility for our government. New York is too expensive. We're pricing people out of New York City, out of New York State. We have a train system that doesn't run on time. We have housing that's falling apart around people that live there. We have a school system that isn't producing the outcomes. These are important issues. Making New York affordable, ending the corruption, and addressing really the problems that face ordinary New Yorkers. That's what's important this election. Don't forget to vote on November 6th. You have the power to change the course of the way things work. Vote November 6th.
I believe that we're here on this earth to be our brothers and sisters' keeper. And our ancestors understood that in realizing that when they fought to hijack this system that was not built for them, that they weren't doing it just for them. They were doing it for their children, their children's children, for black, brown, native people, for the greater good of the whole, and making sure that there was equity and equality for all. And we have to continue that work. And one of the ways that we can do that is with our vote. And that is voting with our dollar, voting with our voice, voting with our energy, voting with our time. Every single moment we spend shows what our priorities are. The way we use our ballot shows what our priorities are. So make sure when you get out there, early vote, get as many people out there as possible and bring them to the polls with you. We have to make sure that we counter the wave of hate and oppression that is brought on by this administration.
Ever since I turned 18, my mom's dragged me with her to go vote every time. This election is important because we got to put the right people in place, to have power, do the right things for the country. You gotta have strong people in those positions to make a change. Go out and vote today. Let your voice be heard. Saint it.
The last election, a lot of people slept on it and we got fucked over. So this is very important because we do not want that to happen again. And we have a lot of issues that need to be taken care of, and yes, they need to be rectified, so we need to not sleep, and it needs to change ASAP. Weapon reform, immigration, mass incarceration, definitely that's a huge issue for sure. Go vote today. Yes, Lord!
From New York and on the new HOT97 app, Ebro in the Morning. On HOT97.
It's Ebro in the Morning, the beautiful Laura Styles. Rosenberg's here. Wrestling tee. Well
back,
done,
I'm
sir.
back, I'm
What is
back.
this hat?
It's a Major League Baseball hat. Big playoff day today.
Big playoff.
So.
Big playoffs. And give it up for the ladies working on hashtag mass bailout one time.
Yes.
Give it up. A big day today. Introduce yourselves.
Good morning. My name is Iffy Ike, and I'm with the Mass Bailout team. Thank you all for having us.
All right.
I'm Monifa Bandele. I'm also with the Mass Bailout, but I'm also with Moms Rising.
I'm Ashley Sawyer. I'm also with the Mass Bailout. I'm an attorney, and I'm policy director at Girls for Gender Equity.
So this goes into our continual conversation we're attempting to have over the last few years about prison reform, the cash bail racket, and everything going on nationally. Shout out to everybody that's working on the front lines. You women are working diligently today to actually bail women and young kids teenagers out of Rikers.
That's right.
And if you could talk about why Rikers, why today, and how is it being funded? How is it happening?
So one of the things that people don't know about Rikers, we use the term jail and prison all the time, and there's a difference, right? Jail is a place that holds people that are basically waiting to go to trial. And right now, Rikers is notorious for being an extension of discriminatory practices, ranging from police brutality, profiling. So if you get stopped and frisked and you don't have anybody around you to justify or help you with your situation, you may end up at Rikers. And what we're trying to elevate with mass bailout is that people right now are their bodies are basically held as ransom because they don't have the money to pay for what the DA and the judge has determined is the amount that would take for you to be free. If you can't pay that, then your body is basically there as hostage. And so right now we are trying to work as an extension of other bailouts that have happened with many of our comrades and allies, Mama's Bailout, Papa's Bailout, National Bailout. And we are working to ensure that up to 500 women and children are not being held hostage.
And this is
Rikers.
just at Rikers.
Right now, we are starting just as Rikers.
500 people that we're going to pay to
goal.
bail out. That's the goal.
Right. That is
And
the
how
goal.
can people watching this participate?
So first of all, if you haven't done it, that means all of y'all in here, you too, Ebro, Rosenberg, all of y'all, please follow at Mass Bailout. That is our official Twitter handle. It's also our Instagram handle. We're also on Facebook. Please follow for a couple reasons. First of all, people can donate. There will also be volunteer opportunities. We'll also have community activities from care kits to different ways people can be involved when people are coming home. But we also need to make sure people keep eyes on what's going on right now. Just to be very clear, there are multiple systems that are not happy with this bailout. We know that there's obstruction that's currently potential from various actors of the legal community. And even though these individuals have the right to have anybody bail them out, we know that people are trying to stop this
How
right now.
would someone who's working against this be incentivized to want to keep these people incarcerated?
Well,
go ahead.
No, I was
Or
gonna say
in
a lot
jail
of
waiting for an extended period of time? Why would that be of someone's interest? If a bail is set,
absolutely,
someone comes along and pays it, why would you be upset with that?
because a lot of times bail and jail incarceration are used as an incentive to get people to make a plea, to testify against others. So people are building their case, not just around the facts of the case, but also around the pressure that they could put on somebody and someone's livelihood to go along with the story that they want to tell, right?
So the more I can keep you, the more I can coerce you to
either plea yourself, say something against someone else. You know, it disrupts the justice system, right? Because instead of trying to make a decision on what you're going to do based on truth and justice, you're thinking about your kids. You're thinking about who's going to get them from school. Am I going to lose my housing? Am I going to lose my job? You know, and so those things become what matters and not necessarily the case. So there's people who just want to make their case. They want to make their quotas, right? We know police have quotas, prosecutors, DAs have quotas, right? They want to win. And they're using people's bodies and their lives as a tool to coerce. So that's what Ify is talking about. Some people don't want there not to be bail because it helps them in making their cases easy and telling the narratives they want to tell.
That's pretty much it. It's super coercive. So I've had clients or young people who made decisions entirely based on like, I need to go back. I'm losing school.
Yeah.
I had a scholarship. I had an opportunity. I'm losing all of those opportunities the longer I'm sitting here. So if you're offering me something, even if it means I have to take a plea to something that I don't feel like is fair or accurate, I'm going to accept it for the only reasons I can get home, see my family, or be safe. We understand the risk of what happens in Rikers. I've seen the housing areas. I've seen what it's like for young people and women there. It's not a place that you want to be, and you're fearful all the time. So you will be coerced and accept whatever's being offered to you just to be home and just to be safe.
And to be clear, this is impacting poor people, right?
Oh, for sure.
If you have the cash, there's people walking
I
around
wanted to
everywhere
elaborate
waiting
on
for
that,
trial.
Because even with the Khalif Browder story, right, a lot of people are still in shock when they're like, oh, wait, but bail was just $900 or $600 or $1,000. That's affordable to someone like me and you, right? But somebody who's poor, who's living check to check, has kids and can't afford that.
$600 might as well be $6,000. Might as well be $6 million.
And how many times
poor.
have you seen people just stay in jail for months? And we're talking about, because people think that it's just like a week or two. No. This is like months.
Years, Laura. Yeah, Khalif Browder was in there for years.
He was in there for 3 years, and he's not the only one. We know of his story because activists pushed it out because people like you guys talked about his story. But there's hundreds of Khalif Browders, and that's why we're bailing these people out this week, because they should be home with their families, but also to really disrupt that whole system.
The system works on so many levels too, because if the people have money, it's guaranteed money to get, right? Because if one of us ends up
Now you're
in
talking
jail,
about the racket of bail.
the racket.
Right,
so
right,
if
right.
I got picked up on something and they were like, it's $3,500, I would be like, oh, honey, we need to come down here with $3,500.
Get me out.
And I would pay it and never think twice about it and say, best money I ever spent in my life. I got out of there, right? But if you don't have, they get to use it double way, because then if people don't have the money, now you get to use them the way you said to help tell the
Use them
stories
for
they want to
anything.
tell.
And
Weren't
you
you
would
here
get-
on this day? Anything.
You would get your money back because you paid cash bail. So now when you show up for all your court dates, you're going to get all of your money back. But for the people who can't afford to come up with the cash, they go through a bondsman. A bondsman taking a percentage off. They're taking
So
a
that's
fee
really
off.
the
That's
racket.
the real
That's
racket.
the real racket.
Wow. So if
bail
you have the
bonds.
money, you get it back anyway. And if
Yes.
you don't have the money, you don't get it
You're
back. It's
paying
exactly
more.
backwards.
You end up
Yes.
paying more because it's like a loan, like a bad loan.
It's like a bad credit card or a
How-
bad loan. Wow.
How is your organization funded? Where do you guys get the money for this?
So this organization is managed by the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Group. Several different donors have been working with Kerry Kennedy and others to raise this money, and we are still raising money to ensure that we can get as many people out. We say 500, but you know, if it's 501, then it's going to be 501. Basically, as long as the funds are there, and as Monifa was explaining and as Ashley was explaining, it's a loan, right? So we are also doing this and hoping to have a revolving door of people donating so we can get as many people out, right? And so what people will see when they go to massbailout.com is a donate stamp there. They can push it. They can donate however much they want, and no amount is too small. We know that family members don't always have the funds. As you can imagine, the collateral consequence of this is that you also have family at home feeling like they're not able to protect you, to save you. This happened with Khalif Browder. This happened with Sandra Bland. I mean, there are people that have been unfortunately jailed, and we think that they're just sitting around, which is why we don't use the term people are sitting at jail. They're not just sitting, right? We know people have been, there's, first of all, for women, over 80% of sexual violence that happens inside of jails nationwide, it happens to women. We're only 13% of the population. So that is already skewed right there, right? What happens to minors is also underreported. We've seen videos of fights. We've seen people being hogtied. I mean, this is what's happening. This is why people want to get them home. So whether it's $5, whether it's $10, this is also a way for community to be like, maybe I didn't have the $900, but I can do something for this because I know a family member that has gone through this, right?
And I want to say that 80% of the women that are incarcerated are mothers, right? So if you're a single mom, your children are possibly like funneled into the foster care system. If you're pregnant, you're not able to get access to the maternal health you need. So there's many, 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 many layers to how dangerous this cash bail system is.
I think also, you know, to help people kind of wrap their brain around this in layman's terms, you know, oftentimes broken windows policing, as you guys pointed out, stop and frisk, not having a driver's license.
Yep.
You know, plates, you know, maybe you needed to turn your plates in and you didn't have insurance and you got a ticket and you had a warrant out for your arrest. There's a myriad.
Identity.
Mistaken identity, right?
Right.
You know we look alike.
I think it's important for people to understand how minor some infractions can be, especially in a city like New York, where you get put in to processing or get tied to something that you didn't have nothing to do with, right? Or live in a neighborhood where there's all type of activity happening and you just happen to live there.
Right.
Or know somebody or live next to someone and your door got kicked in and they snatched you up or have been harassing you or whatever. I think people got to understand that this isn't like, oh, all of these people are criminals. No, these are people who are waiting and cannot afford to protect themselves.
That's
and
right.
cannot afford to access the tools so that they can be treated like everyone else.
That's right. And we also know, let's not take away from the historical context of what jail and prison does to stain, especially Black and brown communities.
Oh, for sure.
The longer you stay there, the more likely people are going to see you as guilty. The more likely people are going to see you that you've done it. And in the state of New York, like many states, you can go, if say something does happen, say I came to your home and something transpired, something happened, depending on whether your home is in a certain area or maybe your home happens to be a church and I didn't know it was
You're
a church.
my cousin. You just committed a crime and came to my crib. They kicking the door in, and everybody in there has got a problem.
Everybody's got a problem.
But you're just my family member, and I happen to open the door
Exactly.
for my family member.
Exactly.
There's so many layers.
There's so many
and
layers.
When you're in, losing your job, losing your housing.
That's right.
It's a spiral. So you're poor, but you get poorer because of the cash.
Right.
You know, you get penalized for being poor.
Right.
In our society, which is another conversation that we continue to have. But I appreciate you, ladies, and
Thank you so
anybody
much.
that's
Appreciate you.
associated with mass bailout and this movement to get this hashtag trending and get people donating on behalf of people who cannot pay their bail.
And one more time, where could people go if they want to just donate?
So please go to massbailout.com. Also follow at massbailout on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And please use the hashtag massbailout. Monifa was part of the first bailout that happened this morning in Brooklyn. So
How
it
much
has
was that one this
officially-
morning, by the way? Congratulations.
We are not disclosing.
Oh, you're not
Okay.
That's the right thing. That's the right thing.
Yeah, we can't
That's the right
because the pool is so small it can identify people based
Got
on
it, got it.
amounts
So
or
if you did-
descriptions
Right,
of them.
right,
So we
right.
want to make sure people out, people safe. But we did do one this morning at Moms Rising. We work a lot with Girls for Gender Equality. The focus right now is on women and children, but really this is a problem that hurts everybody. And so we're just hoping to raise awareness so that no one has to face this.
And this is the beginning, right, of
This
this
is the
movement.
beginning.
This is the first, just so everyone understands, we're just starting this movement of actually making donations and contributing to organizations that are going to help people get bailed out when they can't afford it.
And
This was actually started before now, though, with Black Mamas Bailout.
Right.
So
Right.
Black
So it's
women, for the last 2 years, have started this, and it has just grown into being
That's
like
right.
what you see here today with the mass
Even
bailout.
over this weekend with the marches that have been happening, not just for marching for Black women, but for survivors, right? Based off of the craziness that went on last week. It's been amazing to see women, trans women, white men, Black men, like people are recognizing that it's not just about saving us, but if you protect us, then our communities thrive, right? So this is also about ensuring that we get stronger holistically, but that we also allow for Black women and women to lead in these efforts. But again, to your point, yes, our goal is to reach 400 to 500 women and children, but we need people to follow this hashtag because we also know that there are systems right now, as we're speaking, that are working to shut this down.
And I want to make
So
sure
we
people
need
know
to-
it's not just today.
It's not just today.
Yeah, this is not just a one day.
No, today's
No,
just
no,
Monday.
no,
It's not a grand opening, grand
It is
closing.
the launch.
This isn't
This is the launch. Right.
This isn't some Labor Day sale.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is a movement. a
Unfortunately,
sustained
there will
movement
continue
over-
to be people who need to be bailed
Yes.
out. Yes.
But if we can reduce it significantly, then we know that electeds have said we're going to wait, 10 years, 12 years, whatever, to shut it down. But if we can really show that it can be done in a month, right? That we can bring out 500 women and children, then why are we taking 10 years, 20 years to shut down
Do you know
Rikers?
what's the overall number of women and children that are there at Rikers? Do we know?
And children, you mean under 18, right?
Under 18.
But not like 10 years old.
What's the
No,
youngest?
no.
What's
It's
the youngest?
17 and 18 year
Okay,
olds. It
17,
was 16, 17,
Today.
and 18, and now it's 17.
As of today, today is the day that 16-year-olds are supposed to be moved off of Rikers. But there's still a whole issue with that. So the same Rikers guards are going to the juvenile facilities because the systems couldn't figure out how to do this. So
Because the union stood in the way because they wanted those jobs and to still get those money. So they took the same COs that have been abusing people at Rikers and moved them over to abuse teenagers instead of actually sending people over there who have an interest in rehabilitating and actually turning.
You said it.
So the kids who think they're finally getting to escape these people now show up, and the same people are still there.
Exactly, but we're all hip to the game, right? And so that's why we're fighting, everything, raise the age, making sure that we don't just close Rikers, but they don't create these alternatives to Rikers, which are basically little mini Rikers all over the city.
Oh, no, they
so
gonna
no
do that.
one's fooled.
Oh, they
by
gonna do that.
Well, we're going to fight it.
They're going to do that. They're going to put there's going to be a little Queens Rikers, a little Brooklyn one, a little Staten one, a Bronx one, a Manhattan one. They're gonna sparse all this up.
That's
and
their
break it all
goal,
up.
just like it's their goal to stop us this week from this mass bailout, but they're not going to. And so we are going to be diligent in making sure that it's not the physical Rikers that we want to close, right? It's this mass detention of poor people that we want to stop. So that's really the basis of it. We call it closed Rikers, but that's symbolic, right?
Right.
Rikers could be anywhere.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Rikers could be open and not be a nightmare, right? Could it exist in a world where this wasn't the way it's meant to be set
Well,
up?
because it's a jail. Like if he said, do you really need pretrial detention? Maybe for a very small amount of cases,
So
but
because it's
not
based
the
on
level.
flight risk, right?
Yeah.
And it couldn't be a prison. It's not meant to be. It's not built to be a prison.
Well, I think the thing to make clear is that Rikers is a detention facility. So the people there, by and large, have not been found guilty of any crime. So,
But if they were to
But he's
switch
saying,
it,
could you use
yes,
that as a
exactly.
prison?
Like is it literally close Rikers, or could you repurpose it and be like, we no longer hold people
There's
there?
discussions to do other things with the land. You want to talk about
Yeah, well, what I was going to say was that, and this is what's so great about mass bailout, it opens the door to all the different intersections of discrimination so my thing about prison is that I would still question the system of prison, the composition of prisons. How do people get into prisons? How do these charges get brought up? Why are people pleading? Why are people, so even the concept of prisons, I would question that if you were to repurpose Rikers, but you don't repurpose personnel, you don't repurpose,
It's all the same.
you don't do a lobotomy
Or
on
you
the
don't change
system,
the
then
philosophy of prison
then
in
it's the
this country.
same.
There's more
culture.
things we need in New York City than more prisons.
Right.
We need housing. I don't know if people have been walking the streets, riding the trains lately. Like, there's a desperate need for affordable housing. There's a desperate need for
There's
more
been like
education.
a 500,000.
There's so many other things
we've
that make
lost
cities safe.
500,000, 500,000 affordable housing units in New York City in the last 10 years. 500,000.
And we
you
know
can
that
see it.
So that
housing
didn't start
housing
with de
security.
Blasio.
No, and housing security
million?
is
A
million since 2004.
A million
Wow.
since
Oh,
2004.
my goodness.
My bad.
And housing security is one of the determining factors as to whether women and children are going to end up in jail anyway, right? So we know if we can fix this housing situation, I'm on the board of Women's Prison Association, the issue we focus on the most is housing. You fix housing, you're not going to have vulnerable communities outside being susceptible to
all the
elements of law enforcement, right? So to your point, and then we talk about school to prison and sex to prison pipelines, then what happens in schools, it's not just more schools, you got to get teachers that care about your babies. You got to get people that love your kids. We talk about kids get suspended as if kids walk into a room called suspended. They don't just get suspended.
Right.
Teachers suspend kids. So we have to talk about who is actually taking care of these young people. And if they're the ones that are directing them, right now in New York City, that is the number one route to Rikers is what happens in your school.
I mean, and you can't forget even stories like the reason Trayvon Martin's dead is because he was suspended from school over something that he shouldn't have been suspended for. They've kicked him out of school for 2 weeks.
House. Yeah.
Goes away, ends up. So I mean, I know that's
So
one example.
what
but
makes
still.
communities safe? Housing, employment, safe schools. So when we talk about what should be there instead of Rikers, it's not another prison. It's trying to figure out a way to make the city safe for everyone, so that poor people aren't in cages, whether it's jails or prisons.
And and I would assume that if you weren't holding people for bail all the time, if that system wasn't in place, my guess is you wouldn't need a Rikers. There's enough room in these small jails that already exist because every borough has a place where they can hold you if they need to hold you.
But they're building, their plan now is to build additional units in the
because there was all this talk about with de Blasio trying to close Rikers Island, but then I was like, where are people going to go?
Because they're build new spots.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Unless you change the...
So drug policy is changing, marijuana arrests.
Well,
all
all
of
these
these
people
things.
shouldn't be getting
All
handled.
these, there's a whole chunk of people who don't need to be in jail.
Right.
And they're still getting arrested. So we have to fight that. So while this is just one layer, I mean, think of it as like multi-layer. There's a mass bailout. We're fighting for reform in drug policy. We're fighting for police reform. All those things together are to shrink the numbers. So when we say where are the people going to go, our goal is that there's less people that need to go anywhere.
There you go. Okay.
How's Kanye's 13th Amendment talk helping you guys on your mass bailout?
Don't do that.
What about the
We
MAGA
said it called
hat?
Dear Lord.
Do you feel like the MAGA hat?
Ebro, I thought we were
the
can
MAGA
make the
hat?
whole. We can make the whole conversation without being about Kanye.
No, I just think it's important that people.
Trauma.
I mean,
Trigger alert. Trigger alert.
He's not helping.
I was so happy. I was like, I think we can get through it and not even talk about Kanye.
Well, I figured that people who were thinking that the MAGA hat represented bringing America whole again,
right?
And Kanye and Kim working on prison reform with Trump.
What a
I mean,
hero.
I'm
You
sure.
guys want to give it up for them?
I mean,
What a
look,
job
these
to
people
do.
are on the front lines. Are you guys aligned with Kanye West and Kim Kardashian?
There's your answer.
Yeah. I guess it's
feels like no.
We are looking at what's happening on the Supreme Court level, right? Everything it goes all the way up to the top,
Department
right?
of Justice. I mean, to know that the Department of Justice under Obama, Forever 44, and Eric Holder 2020, as I like to call him, to know that when they were running the Department of Justice, they called cash bail unconstitutional because of the way it attacks the poor. So if we want to talk about the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, if we want to talk about 8th Amendment and cruel and unusual punishment, they were very clear that the way our jail system is set up, that it is attacking the poor. And the reason why that's important is they broaden it enough that it's not just black and brown communities. We know that right now, whether in your West Virginia and the Appalachia, like it's gotten to the point that our jails, to your earlier question, our jails are operating as prisons, and that's the problem. They are treating people as if they're guilty when they haven't even been before a trier of fact, right?
And that's more economic. Once again,
it's intertwined. Right. It is connected. What I think a lot of white people are recognizing is that unless you are rich and white, then you have always really been been at the
You may be less
susceptible.
likely to get arrested for no reason.
You will
but
be
once
less
you're
likely.
arrested, you're still equally fucked.
You're still poor. I mean, if you can't pay,
you can't pay. Maybe not equally.
yeah.
But from a financial standpoint, if you can't pay, you can't pay. So they can hide better because they're white. But once they're there, they're going to realize, well, I don't have the money either to.
Now, again, these things don't operate in just a silo. So the likelihood that even if you can't pay, that you have a family member that either can pay and or can keep a job and or can have things stable and secure is very different depending on
Your race.
your race, and who you are.
You don't
and
have to
where
mince
you are,
words
right?
with Rosenberg. He knows he's
Yeah,
perfectly
that's fine.
white.
Oh no, I'm not mincing.
I'm still focused on Appalachia though, because I would imagine in that spot they're pretty bad. Who are they called? I mean, I don't want to judge. What do I know?
They might got a cousin.
Maybe they
somewhere
have a
with some
cousin
bread.
somewhere.
They white. They got some bread.
Isn't it
somewhere.
crazy when we talk about poor white people? We always focus on literally the same place. Well, Appalachia,
West Virginia.
That's the one
West
place
Virginia.
because everywhere else this problem is so. I mean, there are white people affected by it everywhere, but it's still so disproportionately
It's proportionally
an
black and
issue
brown.
of black and brown people, which is
Yeah, and
terrible.
even in those areas, black people are
It's not like they're good though.
Yeah, we found with stop and frisk. They said, "Oh, it's the neighborhoods." It's like, no, but when you go to white neighborhoods, black people are more likely to
Are
be
still
stopped
more
and frisked.
likely.
So it's not the neighborhood;
They find
it's
us.
the
It's race.
It's the bodies that we're walking
Right.
in. And so, even in the court, when they set bail, when they set the charges, all of that, your race impacts all that.
But let's make America great again, right, guys?
No.
It was never great.
It was whole. We're gonna make it whole.
Whole again.
Look, let's just take it 1 week at a time. Let's mass bail out 500 people. Stop Kavanaugh from being confirmed,
So
and
let's
then we'll
already
see
a
what we're
lot
gonna do
going on. We
next
don't
week.
have time to get to that. There's already a lot.
Let's imagine America. We're not in America. Let's imagine America. Let's imagine what freedom is. Let's imagine what liberation is. Nobody here is liberated. Rich folks ain't liberated, right? They're slaves to their own system, right? Nobody here is liberated. So part of this is like, if we can envision when we started this out and we said we're gonna work on 400 to 500 people, one elder was there, like he was like, that sounds like freedom to me, and we listened to that because the concept of 14, 15 people is still a miracle to get 14, 15 people on the
Obama
ballot.
got how many people out of jail? Did he go and visit? How many? What was the number?
you
From the
mean
mandatory minimum.
From the mandatory minimum.
I thought you meant he paid for people. I was
No,
like,
no,
he
no,
didn't.
no,
He
no,
I was like,
no,
I
no,
didn't
no,
understand.
no, but he
No.
the mandatory minimum. What was it?
He got a handful of people out on mandatory minimums, but definitely not enough. And he was trying to change the law so that they would get out before he got out of office, and that did not happen. That was held up in Congress, like many things.
I'm sure Donald Trump will want to keep those things going.
Trump
I'm
and
sure.
Kim Kardashian gonna get it done.
The dream
what
team
is
for
their
freedom.
goal? What is their goal?
That's the part that I'll tell you the truth. I had a moment yesterday with my wife. We were walking Riverside Park, and I said, one thing I'm worried about is why am I not smart enough to figure out what they're doing? I don't get it. Like, I know the obvious thing would be the Kardashian, Kanye, Trump alliance
giving
is
them too
about
much
getting
credit.
it's about getting people of color to accept
It's
Donald
marketing,
Trump.
bro. It's marketing.
Right.
That's it. It's
But
just
so it's
marketing.
trying. It's just that's it.
It's just to keep their names hot. Like I've been saying, how many weeks
That's
have I
not-
been
but there's
saying?
so many
No,
ways to
listen.
keep their name
It is
hot.
cool to have this conversation now. It's cool. So you're going to see people who have products to sell.
But Kylie's hot, and all she has is her makeup. Why does that have to be?
No, but Kim already did that. She's looking for the next thing.
But it's also her husband is a train wreck right now, so she's trying to do some good deeds.
You know, if they had went all the way the other way and gone like crazed anti-Trump, they'd still be super hot. There's a lot of half the country or
but
more.
you wouldn't get tax breaks, and you wouldn't get the other. You wouldn't get the other parts. You wouldn't get the tax breaks.
I don't understand it myself.
I mean, listen, if Kim Kardashian is listening, you can go to massbailout.com and you can send all your influencers to put their money out there and get people out. I do believe that people that have these type of platforms can be of use. I do not know if she is the strategery that we need right now to free our people. I also think that there's something about turning down your plate and letting other people that have been leading be at the forefront. So it's amazing to me that she's taking up a lot of space where people that have literally given their lives in everything from,
and why is she not platforming other
Ferguson and Baltimore, people, Monifa has been working with Mamadou. Like, she's not even raising the people that we know right here in New York City or even in California that have been impacted by the criminal justice system.
She's taking it all.
She's taking this space and doesn't even know what she's talking about. But what I do know is that she does have a lot of makeup. So when we are asking for in-kind donations, please send those makeups over.
There you go.
And she does have a platform, and we do respect her for that. I can't speak about Kanye. I don't even.
And we're happy for the sister Alice that she got out of prison.
Right.
Absolutely.
So is it weird that I felt away the second Alice got out? And it was like a nice moment. And then when the first thing she said when she grabbed the mic was, "God bless Donald Trump." My first thought was like, oh, so this was all
Who said that?
Alice Johnson. First words out of her mouth. God bless Donald Trump. Thank you,
It's
Donald
marketing,
Trump.
guys.
So I'm trying to understand
All
how
I'm
the whole
saying
thing
is
came
that
together.
Prison is trauma. Okay, I don't know Sister Alice. I don't know what she's faced. You can only imagine if you've been in and you get out.
And
you might
freed you.
think anybody.
No, you're not wrong.
Right?
No, she wasn't.
That's a very difficult place to
She
be,
wasn't.
though.
I'm not saying she was in on the plan. It's a very easy way to get someone to feel that way, because if someone, as we all said, everything we've ever said about Donald Trump, which has never been positive, if he directly came into your life and made a positive impact and you've never had anything good, there's a good chance you'd be like, oh, I love this guy. I don't know about the other stuff he says. I know what he did for me.
Look, I'm
And that's the
speaking
plan.
on behalf of moms, right? And Moms Rising. Women will do anything to see their children. Right.
And this was a grandmother.
And that's why they're used a lot in these plea deals, right? You go home now and pick up your kids from daycare,
Don't you wanna do that? Right.
or you can lose them to foster care. So Alice, her children, her grandchildren.
Of course.
What you may say, God bless whoever
You
the
do
worst
whatever it
person
takes
on
to get
earth,
there,
right,
yes.
to get their children. So we have to put that in that context. We're happy that she's home. We're happy that the women we're going to bail out will be home, but we're not using it to say, hey, follow Iffy, Ashley, and Monifa.
Right, exactly. Right.
We're doing it to say dismantle mass incarceration.
There you go.
I've not heard the Kardashians say that yet.
It's a good point. Yeah. It's a good spot.
Well, hashtag mass bailout.
At
Follow
mass
it
bailout.
At mass bailout.
Oh.
Massbailout.com.
Massbailout.com. And really quickly, Ashley, can you just also really quickly talk about the vulnerability of LGBTQI community? Because we did not touch on that.
Certainly. So at Girls for Gender Equity, we talk a lot about the way that the system affects not just straight people, not just cisgender people, but transgender folks. A lot of the girls and trans and gender nonconforming folks at Rikers are there experiencing an especially traumatic experience, as you can imagine. So I use the phrase TGNC for transgender nonconforming folks. They are disproportionately sexually assaulted at Rikers and at jails and prisons across the country. They're extremely, extremely vulnerable. And so we're thinking about also, when we say women and children, we're also including cisgender women, transgender women, folks who don't identify along the binary. And we want to make sure that they are able to fight their cases from the outside. They are able to have a fair day in court, and also protect them in whatever ways we can from these systems that are particularly harsh to folks who don't identify as a straight cisgender human being.
That's a very good point.
And we're prioritizing pregnant women.
Ashley, right?
Ashley.
Got it right. Mass bailouts, the movement. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you for all the work that you do.
Hopefully, you can keep us updated.
Oh no, we would like to come on a weekly basis just to give you guys like
You
a
guys
freedom
you
report.
can do daily.
Freedom report. Give you a freedom report, let you know what's going on.
We'll check in.
Boom. Freedom report. We have music for that?
Yes.
We can come up with music for the freedom report.
Can we get a mixtape? Can we get a freedom mixtape? Right, it starts with Beyonce's
Public Enemy fight the
Freedom.
power
hours.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Let's do it like that.
And then go to Kendrick. We got to go to Kendrick.
right.
DNA.
Make a mixtape
Yeah,
for
we got to
it.
get a
Hold on,
mixtape.
The Mass Bailout mixtape
Ooh,
dropping.
Yo, it's your boy Donnell Rollins. I'm about to say the realest thing you ever heard in my mouth. Whatever your political party is, be a part of the process. The only way we make change is being a part of the political landscape. And that means vote, bitch! Today is your last day. Today is your last day. Today is your last day. Register to vote today.
Oh, what's going on? It's Ebro from Ebro in the Morning. Too many of us didn't find the election 2 years ago important, which is how we got in the situation we're in right now, where we have terrible leadership and the country going in a direction that I think most people don't like, at least the tone we don't like, and the people talking with power we don't like. So now at the midterms, we have the chance to vote them out. This midterm election for me, with regard to voting rights, with regard to gerrymandering, with regard to women's rights, it's very important because now we have a chance to empower people that can make sure that certain groups don't lose their voting rights. I have a daughter, I have many women in my life that I care deeply about, and I care about them having the power to make decisions on their own behalf, not because the federal government and some religious right wants to control their body. So whatever state you live in or whatever city you live in, participate at the midterms because you can make real change, which could then empower all of us to make even more change come 2020. Yo, and don't forget this Friday is the last day to register to vote here in New York State, so make sure you vote so we can get busy at the midterms.
Hey guys, it's Laura Stiles from Ebro in the Morning. Are you guys registered to vote? If you are not registered to vote, what are you waiting for? Friday, October 12th is the deadline. Okay, there was a time where a lot of us couldn't vote. We didn't even have that option. You complain online, I see you tweeting that things really, really bother you. So what are you waiting for? Go, register to vote, tell all your friends, your family. Understand that there's a lot at stake this time around. It's the midterm elections, and no, we're not voting for president, but this one might be even more important. What's at stake? We have LGBTQ rights, we have healthcare, women's right to choose, immigration, and that's just the beginning of it. I mean, guys, listen, educate yourself. It is so important. People talk about my vote doesn't count, my voice is never heard. Well, this is the time where you need to get up and make sure. If you're over 18, guys, this is your time to make your voice be heard. Register to vote. Deadline is this Friday, October 12th. You have to make a difference in your community.
The last election, a lot of people slept on it, and we got fucked over. So this is very important because we do not want that to happen again, and we have a lot of issues that need to be taken care of, and yes, they need to be rectified, so we need to not sleep, and it needs to change ASAP. Weapon reform, immigration, mass incarceration, definitely that's a huge issue for sure. Go vote today. Yes, Lord!
Let me tell you the best feeling in the world. Voting. I'm telling you, you want to be a citizen of this country, you want to feel that you have a part of the future of this country, please go vote. I don't care how you vote, but vote. It is your right and your obligation.
I believe that we're here on this earth to be our brothers and sisters' keeper. And our ancestors understood that in realizing that when they fought to hijack this system that was not built for them, that they weren't doing it just for them. They were doing it for their children, their children's children, for black, brown, native people, for the greater good of the whole, and making sure that there was equity and equality for all. And we have to continue that work. And one of the ways that we can do that is with our vote. And that is voting with our dollar, voting with our voice, voting with our energy, voting with our time. Every single moment we spend shows what our priorities are. The way we use our ballot shows what our priorities are. So make sure when you get out there, early vote, get as many people out there as possible and bring them to the polls with you. We have to make sure that we counter the wave of hate and oppression that is brought on by this administration.
Hey, what's up? This is Peter Rosenberg, and this is the most important election I can remember because it is a statement on whether you are good with how things are in the White House in this country or whether you think we need to go in a positive, more inclusive, progressive direction. Many senators are up for re-election, and all of the House are up for re-election. And basically, if Donald Trump has control of the House and Senate, he can get done whatever he wants to. If the Democrats can take control of the House and the Senate, it completely ties Donald Trump's hand. Some of these elections will be determined by a matter of hundreds of votes. This isn't some election where you go, oh, my vote doesn't even matter. Every vote matters in these elections. These are local. These are about the people around you that govern you. We have so many people who feel under attack, and those people's problems will only grow and get worse if you do not make a change and get out there and vote in this election. The last day to register to vote in New York is this Friday, so make sure you go out and do that. And if you're watching this from another state, make sure you look it up and find out when you have to register by so you can vote. Our world is counting on you.
Coverage.
Nope. We decided we weren't going to do the voice.
Midterm news coverage. The up-to-date. No?
It's all bad. Every time you do it, it's bad.
Hip Hop Votes 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, you got on Ebro in the Morning. Beautiful Laura Stiles Rosenberg and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. In the building. First of all, we had one conversation with you after the big, primary moment took place.
Yeah.
But now today's the big day. General
Today
day.
is it.
Today is it. Today is the day that we make it official. Hopefully, knock on wood, but we got to turn out today. Everyone needs to vote today.
You are not feeling, or at least not sounding like you feel it's in the bag for your district.
Well, I think for me, I never take anything for granted. So even when people say it's a 99% chance or whatever it is that we'd win, I never want to feel like it's a sure thing, especially this is my first time running for office. For me, it is not real until it is real, 9 p.m. until everyone casts their vote.
And it's District 14, correct? Is
Yep,
that
District 14 in the Bronx and Queens. It's East Bronx and kind of North Queens.
And for that district, what are the big issues? We've talked about immigration before. We've talked about dealing with ICE before and these things, right?
Yeah. Immigration's a big district because we've got Jackson Heights, we've got Corona, we've got Parkchester. And so kind of protecting a lot of our brothers and sisters out there is really important. But a lot of the issues are the same ones that we have throughout the whole city. Housing, gentrification, community displacement, healthcare. And, we're fighting for really a working class agenda. So we're fighting for universal health care. We're fighting for tuition-free public colleges and universities, 100% renewable energy. Like this is what not just our district needs, but what the city needs and what the country needs.
And just, because I'm ignorant and learning, and I think we're all learning how granular the political process has to be for us to protect ourselves on a local, state, federal level. Your job is directly to Washington, D.C. and dealing with the federal government. That's what your primary job is for that district.
Yeah. And so on that note, we are voting on a lot of different levels today. And there are some issues that are fixed better at certain levels than others. So when we talk about housing, some of your best bets on housing are in your state Senate, your state assembly, and your city council. And we are voting on state Senate and state assembly today too. But yeah, as the Congresswoman for New York's 14th district, my job would be to basically commute between the Bronx and Queens and Washington, D.C. to really write and pass the laws that will govern this land.
Is it challenging? You've become such a national political celebrity over the last several months, and you have not served yet.
Yeah.
So, is there a challenge between playing this role that you've been made publicly, but when it comes down to it, you will be a freshman congresswoman who needs to buckle in and learn how to do this job? Do you think about that, having to get down to the nuts and bolts of the work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about it all the time, and we do a lot to prepare because what we're really kind of talking about are two different forms of power, which is really exciting to be able to bring to the Bronx and to bring to Queens, because it's not just that we've elected a new member of Congress. It's that this attention that our race has generated has put a lot of eyes on the Bronx and has put a lot of eyes on Queens. And it's really made our issues national issues, which is so important. So those are two different ways that we can kind of influence what happens in our communities.
I think one of the main things that I loved about you is that you went door to door. You went and spoke to the people directly. And a lot of people that I speak to, like in my old neighborhoods or people that are first-time voters, what are some of the challenges that you hear from the actual people when it comes to voting?
Well, I think the first and foremost, is that it's very understandable, but there's a lot of people who don't want to vote, and people think that people who don't vote are uneducated or apathetic, but I actually think it's the opposite. It's like when you go into relationship after relationship and it doesn't work out and you're like, that's it. I don't want to date anymore for the rest of my life.
Right.
That's kind of how people feel
you
about
care
voting.
so much and you've been hurt so many times.
Exactly. And especially when we're talking about the Bronx and Queens, there's a lot of communities that have been underserved and they've been promised over and over and over again. And so
The first challenge is to actually, tell people, listen, we're the first candidate. I'm the first candidate here that does not take any corporate money. I don't take a dime from luxury real estate developers. I don't take a dime from pharmaceutical companies. I don't take any money from lobbyists. So I really am here for the people. And that's why I spent my whole campaign knocking on people's doors, going door to door, asking them for the vote. So the first challenge is just to get someone to decide to vote. And then the next thing is to just go through the process of voting. You got to go online. You can just, if you are at all confused on how to vote today, just go onto Google and just type in, where do I vote?
Right.
And
Vote.org.
That's right there. It's vote.org. They'll put up a ton of different links. Just click on it, put your address, and they'll give you your polling place.
You brought up disappointment as a part of the voting process. And, a lot of times politicians, like all the time, when I say a lot of times, they come with these promises, right? And we've had several candidates up here that come with promises, even Cynthia Nixon saying that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do this. The how is never a part of the campaign, it feels like. It's always the big headline, but when you get down in the details, there's nothing there. It's empty, right? And that's where the disappointment comes, because it's like, okay, yeah, I want to be your candidate. I want to represent you in D.C. Here's what we need to get done. How? So what are your realistic promises for your district, and what exactly? And then I'm going to ask you after that, how are we going to get these things done?
And this is an excellent question, especially when it comes to lawmaking. I wish that I could be elected and just pass a law on my own. But that's not the way Congress works. There's 435 members and everything gets voted on. So when we talk about something like single-payer healthcare, which we know that, so what single-payer healthcare is physical, mental, and dental healthcare for all Americans under a single-payer system that is free at the point of service. So it doesn't mean that, we're not saying that this system doesn't cost anything, but we're saying that when you actually show up to the doctor, there will not be a cash register at your doctor. You can go and get the healthcare you need at the moment you need it. There are so many ways that we can do it. When people say the most common question is, how do you pay for it? There's like 9 different revenue streams. You can tax corporations. You can do a payroll tax, like the way we pay for Social Security or Medicare. You can have a tax on Wall Street transactions. There are a lot of different ways that you can go about funding it. But the actual way that it happens is that when you get all these people to the table, they have to negotiate how all of these processes go through.
And you got to watch the people who are funded by rich people, because the people who are funded by the rich people are the ones who are going to block this, because the rich people or the Wall Street people are the ones that are going to get taxed. And 2 of the examples you used are people who have lots of money and can contribute a little bit more to help the little guy.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen something like $60 billion spent on just lobbying in the last 10 or 20 years. And that's billions and billions of dollars that corporations and industries and special interests spend on buying politicians' votes and buying up their votes. And they would not be putting those billions of dollars in that system if they are not getting a return on it. And so it's so important that we start electing politicians who refuse to take any corporate money. It's not, what I can say is that when we ran, we were the first, I was the first person in the district to really run without corporate money in that way. But since then, we've had a lot of down ballot candidates start to reject corporate money. So we now have about four elected officials in Queens that have started to say and pledge to not take any luxury real estate developer money, which is huge.
And I guess that points to the back of the ballot today, which is what do they call it? Question 1?
Yeah, question 1.
Which is about this specific issue.
Yep.
So you're saying yes on this as well?
Yeah, I'm definitely saying yes on question 1. So what question 1 does is that it limits the amount of big money that can be put into a campaign. So that maximum donation, which in New York is crazy. In New York State and New York City, the state especially, the cap is even higher than the federal cap. So, so a state senator can take more big money than even I can as a federal official. Yeah,
That's
is
crazy.
The dark money in New York is insane.
Well, we've talked about New York being a liberal sham, New York State especially being a liberal sham, and that whole sham look, he's probably going to win, but Cuomo is dark money. It's big money. It's Wall Street money, and it's corrupt.
Mm-hmm. And dark money you're right. I mean, dark money is the single root core rot problem that we have in our democracy right now. You want to ask why schools aren't better. You want to ask why pharmaceuticals are so expensive. You want to ask why housing and rent is going up. It all goes down to the role of money in politics. And unless we really fix that problem, which we have the opportunity to, if you vote yes on the ballot question 1 today, unless we do that, and unless we vote for politicians who pledge and we demand that politicians do not take this corporate money.
And there's transparency there.
Exactly. And there is transparency there. Unless we demand that and make that the new standard, we're going to keep having these issues.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you brought up single-payer health care as a realistic promise that you feel like you could get and fight for in the 14th district. What else is a realistic promise for you?
So I think one that we can get towards is, and this is the one that we need to, that I think we need to, is that we need to have a mass infrastructure and jobs program to get us to 100% renewable energy in 10 years. We do not even have a choice. It's not even about it being too expensive. It's not even about it being unrealistic. IPCC came out with a report. If we do not fix this problem in 12 years, we are going to face cataclysmic disaster. And we do not want to go and tell our grandchildren, as people are drowning generations from now, that we didn't do it because we couldn't find out a way to pay for it, or because we weren't courageous enough to stand up to oil and gas companies to save our planet. Hell no, I'm not going to do that. I am not going to leave this planet until we have these things.
So how would you go about working on something like that?
So with that, and again, what this is going to require is a lot of consensus building. That is why today is so important, not just here in New York, but so many of us have families in other places. My mother lives in Florida. There's a lot of swing districts in Florida. You've got Andrew Gillum, you've got Stacey Abrams in Georgia. We have family all over the country, and we need to turn out our families, especially if you're Black, brown, immigrant, queer, if you come from a community that is historically marginalized in these systems. We need to turn up and bring that power to the polls, because if we do not turn out a majority in this midterm, we aren't going to get any of this stuff done.
Right.
We aren't. And until then, we need to lead. That's why, just if you can do one thing today, vote. And if you cannot vote, text your family and your friends to vote too, because we really need to be present. And also, it's important to say that electoral politics is not the be-all, end-all of change.
We've been talking about that this morning,
really
that these
not.
midterms, local politics, city politics, state politics, it's not electoral. This is vote and get it.
Yeah, and it's also about what we do after today, too, that I cannot stress enough, because we think about our communities, and what it really is about is health. How healthy are our communities? Are we educated? Are we happy? Are we eating right? And when you think about health, there's no one thing you can do to just be a healthy person. You need to do a lot of different things. So I think of voting as like brushing your teeth. You need to brush your teeth every day. But if you only brush your teeth and eat terribly and never exercise and don't take care of your mental health, you're not going to be a healthy person. But at the same time, if you don't brush your teeth are going to fall out. So that is what voting is like. We need to be voting. It's a habit. We got to do it every single time.
And there is work. You have to set aside time, just like the example you use. It takes routine. It takes commitment. Right? You got to do it for your own well-being.
Exactly. We got to do it. But then it's about the other things, too. Are we reading about what's going on in our communities? Are we showing up at our kids' schools? Are we listening when you have activists, groups like Black Lives Matter, when you have Muslims for Progress, when you have, immigrant and DACA workers organizing, when we're talking about criminal justice reform, do we know what's going on? Are we talking about these issues? And are we showing up to tell people when things are messed up? A lot of people, they say it's really, they get cynical and they do feel burned by politicians, but this is not a set it and forget it thing. I wish it was. I wish you could just vote and everything would be great.
I wish I could just go to the gym and have abs too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It doesn't happen that way.
It don't work like that,
It
kid.
does not work like that. It does not work like that. And so really what we're doing today when we vote is that we're choosing who we want to be having a relationship with.
That's who we are choosing when it comes to our leaders. We're choosing who we're going to have a relationship with. So if you cast your vote and then never hit that person up, don't be surprised when that relationship is not good.
Have the rich people started trying to set you up yet? You know, you're a socialist. You care about humans. How dare you?
Since day one.
How dare you care about humans and the planet and these things?
Yeah,
It's
no,
craziness.
for sure. I mean, really, and the reason it's such an issue is because we are challenging this notion that profit must be placed ahead of people's well-being at any and all human and environmental costs.
Say that again, one more time for people.
That we are challenging the idea that profit needs to be had at any and all human and environmental costs. That's really what this notion that we're challenging. That, for example, with healthcare, that you have to have chemotherapy for profit so that someone makes a buck every time someone's diagnosed with cancer. That is not that way everywhere in the world. That's only that way in the United States of America when it comes to developed countries and developed economies. There are some things, I believe, that should not be had at a profit. When you look at things like public school education, tuition, our K through 12 system, people say, oh, tuition-free public college, that's crazy. We send, every public school student in America from kindergarten through their senior year in high school, and we educate them for 12 years of their lives, tuition-free. And we take that for granted, but it's one of the biggest public systems that creates the largest amount of wealth in this country. Because, if we had to have all education at a profit, think about how many more people wouldn't be able to read in this country because they couldn't afford to send their kids to
and then think about how much harder it gets. And I know a lot of people talk about this now that own businesses to find workers who are ready for the workforce.
Are skilled. Exactly. This is not about, this is not like this anti-wealth kind of agenda. What it's about is making sure that everyday working people enjoy more of the value that they create every single day. You show up, a person shows up to work, and you generate so much value for the economy. I think it's something, there are studies that have anywhere between like $60 an hour in terms of how much wealth the average American worker can generate. But when you have a minimum wage of $7, $8 an hour in some parts of this country, where is that margin going to? It's not, and that is really the problem that we're dealing with. Wages have stayed the same for almost 30 years, but this nation and overall is getting richer and richer and richer. And to be asked every single year to be doing more on less money is what everyday people are dealing with, and it's not right.
The majority of people have 2 jobs or 3.
Yeah. And it's like, and a lot of this data doesn't go recorded either. When you do Uber or, if you're driving Uber or Lyft or any of these cars, it doesn't formally count like a second job in a lot of different ways. It's very difficult for that stuff to get counted, or all of these side hustles don't get counted in our formal statistics in our economy. But people are out here grinding like crazy, they never had to before.
It's because there's crazy socialists like you that actually care. You know what I mean? It's crazy that you believe in this whole system of America, that it could actually work. I mean, how dare you?
And care about people who aren't necessarily yourself or don't necessarily look like you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really the message that I get from a lot of people who are, either against individuals who talk like yourself or pro this current regime that is in leadership in our country.
Yeah.
Right? The message that I get is that you don't care about people. You don't care about the potential of this nation and the great social experiment that it is to get all these different cultures and people from all walks of life to actually work together and care about one another in a way that's, beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's that when we really decide to come together and show up, it challenges every historical structure of power and oppression that has ever existed in this country. So when you have the black, the brown, the low income, the working class, when all these people start looking out for each other's interests, that challenges the traditional structure of people who have historically held power in this country, the wealthy. And that is why whenever you have someone that tries to make social change in this country, that really starts to speak truth to power, they say the same things about all those people. They say you're naive. They say you're uninformed. They say you're not ready for this. They say you are extreme, that you're socialist, that you're crazy. If you are being called those things, you're often on the right track. They said the same thing about King, about Gandhi, about FDR. They say all of these things about people who made really broad change in the history of this country. Because when you speak truth to power, power will always be coming for you, no matter if you're elected, no matter if you're an activist, no matter what it is. But in order for us to leave a better world for our kids, we need to be willing to take that risk and stand up.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I know you're still going to vote, or did you vote?
I'm voting today at noon, 1 p.m.
Got it. And because you're like a big celebrity now, like I saw you walking into the building, you know, people stopping you on the street, taking photos, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's
you hot on the Instagram, it's hot out here.
That's right. I mean, it's great too to be able to have, I mean, you think about how special that is, to be able to walk down a street in Corona or the Bronx and people can stop and know who their next member of Congress is going to be.
That's the thing. That's what makes it so different.
Huge. That makes it so different.
And what are the type of conversations that you have with people? I'm curious because I know more than ever, young people are more intrigued to be informed. So what are the type of conversations are you having with these first-time voters?
Well, it's funny because people will say that I'm radical or that I'm super far left or all of these things. But when I have these conversations, this is literally what people are asking for. You know, people are asking us to stand up. People say, give them hell. People say, don't back down. People say, don't compromise on our values, when everything else tells you to do the opposite. And so those are the conversations that I'm having in the street. And I feel a tremendous amount of responsibility, because if I am the reason that someone is deciding to vote for the first time, or if I am the reason that someone is deciding to believe and cast their vote after a long time of not casting their vote, I have a really special and kind of life responsibility to them and to that. And so I take this very seriously. And it's not to say that I have all the answers. And it's not to say that, you know, it's not to say that I'm going to just wave a wand and we're going to get it done in 2 years. But it's to say that I'm going to make that commitment for as long as I have the privilege of being in this position.
Yeah, that realistic conversation of how the process actually works and the work that goes into actually getting change done in this country is one of the, I guess, toughest things for people to wrap their mind around, is the amount of effort and consistent work that it takes to get things done. And do you feel like you've been building relationships already on Capitol Hill or in DC or wherever it is?
I think we have, but it is literally because we have created a movement and because everyday people are deciding to actually participate for the first time, that we've gotten some really amazing other people, largely women like myself, that are also getting elected for the first time this year.
Well, you have Julia Salazar, that's Brooklyn, right?
Well, Julia Salazar, she's running in Brooklyn for state senate. You also have Jessica Ramos, Catalina Cruz, Biaggi on a state level. On a federal level, we really joined with a lot of other women after I won, and we helped elect Ayanna Pressley out of Massachusetts, first black woman to ever represent the state of Massachusetts in Congress. We helped elect 2 of the first Muslim women in American history to serve in Congress, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. And there's a lot of other really amazing, women that may be, and men and all sorts of people. First trans woman may be governor of Vermont by the end of today. We don't, it could very well happen. And so to me, it's like this freshman class, it's this new blood that's coming in that really is the biggest opportunity for change.
Alexandria, thank you for taking time today.
Thank you all.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
Absolutely. And thank you all for having these conversations, where we need to be having them. This is not about always just having these conversations on CNN. This is about having conversations in our community the way that we have it.
I think the one thing I'd ask of you after today, we had Blasio here, and we keep a relationship with him. And even though he was scared to come up here during the whole NYC stuff, and we got a chance to confront him about it today. We talked about it, and he was, admitted mistakes and all those things. Is, I guess, keeping people up to date on the incremental things, even if it's 30 seconds, 3 minutes, just like, yo, this is what's going on, or this is how it affects you, or here's the action item for you. I think that is the single, I would say, being in this media position, toughest thing for me to get out of politicians. What do you want people to do? And when?
Yes. So the easiest way to do that, I do all my own social media. So if you literally just want to know what I'm up to on a given day, just follow me. Honestly, it's that simple. And I think it's a small thing, but it's really important. So I'm at Ocasio2018 on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for today. The handles are probably going to change after the election.
Right.
So follow today, Ocasio2018. And I very frequently make updates. I'm on IG stories, and I tell people, hey, even if you just want to know what happens, like a day in the life, this is what I'm up to today, and these are the fights that are happening today. And I'm a big believer in having these, elevating your consciousness on your social media feeds, because it is literally the easiest thing to do. If you just start choosing to follow activist groups, following Black Lives Matter, following, Raíces that's doing immigration work, following some of these groups, literally every time you go up on Instagram, you'll learn something and stay updated. And you don't need to be, buying a paper newspaper every day. It becomes such an easy way to stay informed. And so definitely I'd say follow me, follow people that you're interested in on social media, and you will get those updates.
And specifically follow people that are doing the work to affect your local community as well. Because I think right now every politician has social media.
Pretty much, yeah.
Matter of fact, they need to lose their job if they don't. Right.
I mean, it's a form of communication. This is not like, I think sometimes, especially with a lot of older folks in office, they think social media is like a fad, or they think that it's a waste of time or whatever, but it's how we communicate. It's our TV. And so if we're not on it, if we're not communicating, then we're not doing our jobs.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, today's the big day. Get out and vote, New York City, tri-state. Anybody listening, thank you for your time again.
Thank you. Thank you so
Give
much.
Give it up for one time, man. 28, was it 28? Did you turn 29 yet?
I just turned 29.
Yeah, big deal. Big deal.
Money Fridays. Hot 97's free money Fridays.
Hey, who's this?
Marco from Jersey. What up?
Congratulations, you got $1,000.
You lying.
From New York and on the new Hot 97 app.
Yo, it's your boy Donnell Rollins. I'm about to say the realest thing you ever heard in my mouth. Whatever your political party is, be a part of the process. The only way we make change is being a part of the political landscape. And that means vote, bitch! Today is your last day. Today is your last day. Today is your last day. Register to vote today.
What's going on? It's Ebro from Ebro In The Morning. Too many of us didn't find the election 2 years ago important, which is how we got in the situation we're in right now, where we have terrible leadership and the country going in a direction that I think most people don't like, at least the tone we don't like, and the people talking with power we don't like. So now at the midterms, we have the chance to vote them out. This midterm election for me, with regard to voting rights, with regard to gerrymandering, with regard to women's rights, is very important, because now we have a chance to empower people that can make sure that certain groups don't lose their voting rights. I have a daughter, I have many women in my life that I care deeply about, and I care about them having the power to make decisions on their own behalf, not because the federal government and some religious right wants to control their body. So whatever state you live in or whatever city you live in, participate at the midterms because you can make real change, which could then empower all of us to make even more change come 2020. Yo, and don't forget, this Friday is the last day to register to vote here in New York State, so make sure you vote so we can get busy at the midterms.
Ever since I turned 18, my mom's dragged me with her to go vote every time. This election is important because we gotta put the right people in place, to have power, do the right things for the country. You gotta have strong people in those positions to make a change. Go out and vote today. Let your voice be heard. Saint it.
Every day, people are making decisions in Albany that affect everyone's life in the state of New York, and it's time that we absolutely stand up and take responsibility for our government. New York is too expensive. We're pricing people out of New York City, out of New York State. We have a train system that doesn't run on time. We have housing that's falling apart around people that live there. We have a school system that isn't producing the outcomes. These are important issues. Making New York affordable, ending the corruption, and addressing really the problems that face ordinary New Yorkers. That's what's important this election. Don't forget to vote on November 6th. You have the power to change the course of the way things work. Vote November 6th.
Hey guys, it's Laura Stiles from Ebro In The Morning. Are you guys registered to vote? If you are not registered to vote, what are you waiting for? Friday, October 12th is the deadline. Okay, there was a time where a lot of us couldn't vote. We didn't even have that option. You complain online. I see you tweeting that things really, really bother you. So what are you waiting for? Go, register to vote. Tell all your friends, your family. Understand that there's a lot at stake this time around. It's the midterm elections, and no, we're not voting for president. But this one might be even more important. What's at stake? We have LGBTQ rights. We have healthcare, women's right to choose, immigration, and that's just the beginning of it. I mean, guys, listen, educate yourself. It is so important. People talk about my vote doesn't count, my voice is never heard. Well, this is the time where you need to get up and make sure. If you're over 18, guys, this is your time to make your voice be heard. Register to vote. Deadline is this Friday, October 12th. You have to make a difference in your community.
Hello, my name is Carmen Perez.
And I'm Jay Jordan.
And I feel that this election is critical because we need everyone's voice to get out these politicians who don't care about our communities.
In Florida right now, the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition is in a fight to re-enfranchise 1.68 million Floridians with felony convictions to vote. And so for me, as a person with a conviction from California, this election is important for everybody in Florida.
We need you to go vote for people who are gonna come out and support our issues, particularly for women. We got Brett Kavanaugh that is being supported to go into the highest part of, highest court, right? And he obviously does not care about women.
Vote women, vote a woman in office. If you never voted a woman in office, vote women in office. It's important for men to stand in solidarity and get allies, especially in New York. If there's a woman on the ballot, check her resume. If she's dope, vote her in office. October 12th, Friday, is the last day to register to vote. So get out, take your grandmother, your grandfather, your auntie, your uncle, your dog, your nephew, everybody, make sure they register to vote before this Friday because it's the last day to register to vote.
Let me tell you the best feeling in the world. Voting. I'm telling you, you want to be a citizen of this country, you want to feel that you have a part of the future of this country, please go vote. I don't care how you vote, but vote. It is your right and your obligation.
Hey, what's up? This is Peter Rosenberg, and this is the most important election I can remember because it is a statement on whether you are good with how things are in the White House in this country or whether you think we need to go in a positive, more inclusive, progressive direction. Many senators are up for re-election, and all of the House are up for re-election. And basically, if Donald Trump has control of the House and Senate, he can get done whatever he wants to. If the Democrats can take control of the House and the Senate, it completely ties Donald Trump's hand. Some of these elections will be determined by a matter of hundreds of votes. This isn't some election where you go, oh, my vote doesn't even matter. Every vote matters in these elections. These are local. These are about the people around you that govern you. We have so many people who feel under attack, and those people's problems will only grow and get worse if you do not make a change and get out there and vote in this election. The last day to register to vote in New York is this Friday, so make sure you go out and do that. And if you're watching this from another state, make sure you look it up and find out when you have to register by so you can vote. Our world is counting on you.
I believe that we're here on this earth to be our brothers and sisters' keeper. And our ancestors understood that in realizing that when they fought to hijack this system that was not built for them, that they weren't doing it just for them. They were doing it for their children, their children's children, for black, brown, native people, for the greater good of the whole, and making sure that there was equity and equality for all. And we have to continue that work. And one of the ways that we can do that is with our vote. And that is voting with our dollar, voting with our voice, voting with our energy, voting with our time. Every single moment we spend shows what our priorities are. The way we use our ballot shows what our priorities are. So make sure when you get out there, early vote, get as many people out there as possible and bring them to the polls with you. We have to make sure that we counter the wave of hate and oppression that is brought on by this administration.
Hey, what's going on? It's Megan Wright. So I used to be one of those people who thought, well, my vote's not going to count anyway, so what difference does it make? Why do I have to vote? That is not the case, especially for local and state elections. Sometimes it can come down really close and your vote really does matter. Have you ever seen like those polls where it's like 48% to 49%? So definitely go out and vote, exercise your right if you want to make a difference November 6th. We live here and we take public transportation, and for a lot of people, it's their only means of transportation. So it needs to be a top priority to make sure that the subways are working well, that they're clean, but it needs to happen. Go out and vote November 6th. Make it happen.
The last election, a lot of people slept on it and we got fucked over. So this is very important because we do not want that to happen again, and we have a lot of issues that need to be taken care of, and yes, they need to be rectified, so we need to not sleep and it needs to change ASAP. Weapon reform, immigration, mass incarceration, definitely that's a huge issue for sure. Go vote today. Yes, Lord!